I was very disappointed, and Dan and I have been going back and forth. I was very disappointed in how the Thing looked. I did not like how the Thing looked. And even though the Red Hulk I can kind of write off because I kind of knew I would hate this movie anyway, I had some hope that they would make the Thing something that did. I am just starting to wonder, after what, almost 2 decades of trying this now, if the Fantastic Four is just not something that works in any medium except the books. I'm starting to wonder that, because the animated series do not do well. We've tried live action movies. We've tried 3 of them. It didn't work. This is the 4th try. I'm just starting to think that the books are the only medium in which the Fantastic Four can be done well. I don't know what you guys think, but anyway.
Yeah. But I think, okay, I watched the teaser on my phone and I thought the Thing looked great. But then I watched the teaser.
We argued about it. We argued about it, Dan.
Yeah, we did.
Then you watched it on your TV.
But then I had to admit, I watched it on my TV and the CG was a little bit more sketchy once I had it on a big screen. Now, when I go to see Fantastic Four in an IMAX theater, I don't know. And my daughter, I showed them the teaser, and my daughter thought he looked like E.T. She said the Thing looks like E.T. And I was like, oh,
that's fair.
Man, I can't see that now.
So you think he looks worse? Thing looks worse?
I think he doesn't. He doesn't.
There's no way he looks worse.
But the Thing doesn't look as good as I wanted.
I think Thing doesn't look as good as he should for this movie, and that's disappointing. Right. That's disappointing. But Red Hulk looks so much worse.
Barry Allen is slow. I am encouraged by the F4 trailer. Maybe it can help Marvel rebound.
That's the hope. That is the hope.
I'm not that encouraged. I'm just not. I can't get on board.
But it's the only thing that can help them rebound, because Thunderbolts and Cap probably aren't going to do it. And Daredevil, I think everybody's just going to look at it as its own thing. So you kind of only have for it.
I feel like it's all in on this. It's like either it's going to be either it's going to be a silent reboot, okay, which it looks like it can be. But if it's a silent reboot and everything is just what I fear, which is that the Fantastic Four just doesn't work in this medium, that could be a terrible way to kick off your reboot. So I don't know. I'm really, I have to see it. I have to see it. And in this trailer, I don't see anything about Reed. Reed is absent from the trailer. I mean, one of the most important characters in all of Marvel, and we saw nothing in this trailer.
And he told you all about dinner. He told you all about family supper, Tim.
They show one scene of him writing on a chalkboard, and that's it.
Yeah, and he doesn't seem like Reed in most of the trailer. I mean, Reed doesn't put on a suit and spin his wife around, and that's not Reed. I don't know.
They're gonna learn real quick, very early, if it works or not. Because if Reed doesn't work, the rest of the movie doesn't work, and it doesn't matter how good the actors are.
This is
going to be, because here's the thing: the Fantastic Four is a perfect spot to launch a new continuity, because it's where the original one started. It started with the Fantastic Four, but we don't know how they translate, and they would be easier characters to roll in to an existing continuity. Even though they're a great rebooting point, they're also the kind of characters that might have benefited from Marvel owning them a long time ago and being rolled into an existing universe, because it's easier to establish how smart Reed is when he can play off of Tony Stark, Hank Pym, Bruce Banner. When he can be in that room and be smarter than all of them, then you know how smart he is. But when it's just him and like random other scientists, you just it's harder to get it. So I don't know. I think both look terrible.
I can't disagree. It just doesn't look like it. Neither one looks like anything that I'm actually going to enjoy. I mean, maybe it'll surprise me, but I don't know. We'll see.
Fantastic Four looks like typical late phase MCU trash. I don't know. I thought the trailer didn't look terrible. I would hope that like maybe they polished the thing a little bit because again, the CG looked great on my phone. I do feel like, do we think that he's not in the shorts just to save money?
Yes.
That he gets the suit.
I think it is easier. It is easier to do the special effects with the suit.
Yeah.
And I think that the suit makes less sense than anything that I've seen, even in the previous Fox movies. And so I don't know what to think about it yet.
Actually, you're right.
I just don't. I don't think the stretchy suit makes any sense other than to make it easier on the effects team. I can't think of a single reason to do it.
In comics, every now and again, like in Ultimate Fantastic Four, you'll get the thing in like a singlet, right? But he's still rocking the bare feet. You know,
no boots.
No boots. Yeah. He's an invulnerable rock monster.
How does the thing get boots on? That's what I want. I really want to know how the thing gets boots.
On. You're going. You know what? You're going too realistic. You can't do it. It'll just destroy your mindset.
Yeah, but you know, and I don't know if one thing in the teaser is when he clapped.
Yeah.
Even more than the look, that kind of threw me off because it didn't sound like rocks hitting each other. It sounded. It sounded like a person clapping.
It was.
Yeah. So, like, why would a rock monster make that sound?
Why did they focus on that? Why did they focus on that too?
Yeah. Why?
That's the kind of stuff that just drives me crazy. You know what I mean? And there's never, you know, the reason I absolutely hated the first movie was not just because it was bad, but I think they focused way too much on Ben. I think they focused way too much on he can't drink a glass without breaking it, and he can't sit on a couch without breaking it, and he can't walk through a door without breaking. I mean, they focused way too much on that stuff. And when I saw the scene in the trailer of him watching the TV of him doing the interview before he got deformed, it was one of those things that kind of made me think, okay, so this is going to be a story about Ben. You know, Ben's angle in the story is going to be very much the same as that 2005 movie. And that's not a good angle, in my opinion. And Dan and I have talked about this. That's something that was examined in the comic books and done very well. And it just kind of harkens back to, is this really the best way to tell the story in cinematic form? I just don't know if it is. But
I feel like this monster, the whole Reed is guilty over Ben. Ben can't be a man. Like that can be done well. It has not been done yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see with that one.
Yeah.
I still think he'll be better. I think he'll be better than.
Yeah. When he licks his finger.
That was dumb.
It should sound like rocks grating. It should sound like scraping.
I just think they're gonna try and mascot him, and he's not really a mascot. He's not meant to be a mascot, and I think that's what they're gonna go with that.
I mean, they didn't go that way with Korg. Whenever Korg bumped up against anything, it sounded like rocks grinding against it. You know what I mean? And that I don't know what their end game is here. What are they thinking that Ben? Because if
the thing, the ever loving blue eyed thing is not cute and cuddly. He's got to be.
No,
he's not.
God.
Yeah, I don't know. No,
it's clobbering time, man. I mean,
do we all know how this movie ends? Does it end with them somehow being transported into the current MCU timeline?
It'll probably end with it'll probably end with an incursion. And if it ends with an incursion, that's how you get both timelines connected, or at least get them into the timeline. But incursions are, man, that's kind of a cop, because now we would have had Doctor Strange rip apart time. We would have had Loki and the TVA and all of that with the multiverse. And now we're going to incursion events. It's literally just saying we have a multiverse over and over and over again. We just put a different name into it. And to be fair, incursion is a thing that happens in the comics, but you don't have any other setup. So now that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be messy, man.
Do we want to sit through? I mean, do we know the runtime yet? I don't know if we do.
I don't know.
Do we want 90 minutes plus?
No.
Of watching this movie knowing exactly what happens at the end. You're sitting watching this, this mid-century modern paradise for an hour and a half to 2 hours, knowing that nothing that happens in this current environment matters because these 4 characters from this world are going to get transported to a completely different timeline at the end of the movie. And we're never going to visit this timeline again.
I feel like the end of the movie is going to be like the 4 of them sacrificing themselves. It's going to be some huge cosmic galactic event with Galactus. And then the post credit is going to be them. That's where we're going to see the post credit is going to be them. It caused some kind of incursion event, and then just kind of bleeds into what I'm trying to think, what was the run that did that in the comics with the X-Men and the Avengers? I forget what the run was, but it really, even though it technically connected the dots, it still made you say that was kind of a cop-out. You know what I mean? Like it's like it technically connected the dots, but was that really the most efficient way to have done it rather than just starting over? Probably not.
Wonder though, are they going to add the Beyonder and things like that? Because that comes into play too. And I guess people kind of would know who the Beyonder is because of What If. Not that everybody watched it, but some people did. I don't know.
Yeah,
they were using Doctor Strange as a way to kind of act as like a Beyonder because people knew who he was. But technically, all of that happens is because of him. So we'll see.
I mean, maybe they lose. A rough one. Maybe they lose, and Galactus eats their Earth.
Yeah, I mean, you never know.
then they have to come to another timeline to try to save a different Earth from Galactus. I don't know. I mean,
what he did in Justice League.
It's just, Here's the thing. I think, and I don't know, this is what I think they should have done. And I really don't have enough faith in them to think they've done it. And they've announced too many things, but I think that they could have backdoored this to where if Cap 4 and Thunderbolts performed poorly, which they're probably going to, whether they're good or not, they're going to underperform. I mean, we can all agree that. So they could make Fantastic Four the reboot. We've seen this trailer and it feels like it doesn't have any ties. So if there really aren't any ties, they can just announce like, this is the new continuity here. It all starts again right here. Yeah. And I understand why they don't want to do it yet, right? Because they saw what happened with DC. DC said like, here's 6 movies that don't matter. Please go see them.
That's going to be tough, man. That's got to be tough. I will say this. I got to head out, but before I go, I will say this. Fantastic Four is very similar to Superman, but in a different way. If Superman can't get itself going, DC as a company will probably know this is going to be trouble, and it's going to be hard to save it from that point. If Fantastic Four can't get it going, Marvel Studios pretty much needs to change their entire plan.
They're gonna need a complete tear down at that point because this was it. Yep,
that's it. Yeah. So if it, me and Tim are just hoping it tanks hard so we get a whole new.
All right, guys.
All right,
John. Thanks so much.
John.
Thanks much for joining us, man. Appreciate it.
Later,
take care, everybody.
Find John Automates on @JohnAutomates here on YouTube. It's in the description. So
all right.
Yeah. So he hung in there longer than I think he intended to, but
I think so. But hey, I appreciate everything John did there. So awesome.
So the MCU though, it is in I really feel like in trying not to tank Captain America 4 and Thunderbolts and maybe a couple of Disney Plus TV shows, they're doing the Fantastic Four harm. Because this movie is set in a totally different timeline. It's a period piece. And I think excitement around it would be 100 times more if they were like, this is the beginning of a new continuity.
I think that Disney has a sickness. And that sickness is that they do not focus on building a good cinematic world anymore. Okay. They don't focus on actually what would make this an interesting movie series anymore. What they focus on is they focus more on the rights to the property that they just purchased and what they could ultimately do with it. They just opened up the Marvel theme park over in California, and all they're thinking about is adding as many important properties to that particular park as they can, because they want that to be a destination for nerds and kids and everything. That's what they want. Is they want to focus on the park. They did the exact same thing when they bought Star Wars. They built Galaxy's Edge. It wasn't about a cinematic universe that made any sense to them. That it never was about that. It was about, what can I sell at this theme park that people will feel like they have to buy, and that they will feel like they have to take a trip here so that they can go see it. That's what it's always been about with Disney since they acquired these properties. And what really stinks is it wasn't always that way. Particularly with Marvel, it wasn't always that way. They seem to be focused in the Infinity Saga on actually building a world. They're not at that stage right now. They're at the stage where it's all about, what can we do to drive people to these theme parks, to buy these toys, to do all these other things that we want them to do. And I feel like I'm getting a lot of that from what they're doing lately, and that's going to be the main issue until they change their focus off of that and focus on building an actual good cinematic universe and building events around the releases of their movies again. It's not going to be anything that anybody's going to want to go see.
The key thing is to get the next job, or the job you want. You got to do well with the job you have, is the kind of thing. So if you want to sell merch based on a movie, you have to have a good movie, or at least one that people like. But people aren't going to buy merch for a movie they don't like. That's not, that doesn't, you're not going to ride a ride based. So they got Fantastic Four, and they're like, oh, it was most popular in the 60s. We'll set it in the 60s, and we'll be able to have Fantastic Four stuff at Tomorrowland until we are able to add it to the Marvel theme park. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. And like at first I was iffy about why it was a period piece. It didn't make sense to me, because Fantastic Four, yes, it was originally launched in the 60s, but so was Spider-Man.
A lot of these were launched in the 60s. The X-Men. I mean, it's like, look, I'm not gonna say, but and I think one of the things that just kills me about what they're doing with the Fantastic Four in particular is the timeline that they're focusing on in this universe is something that they could have picked any timeline, because they completely changed the universe, apparently, based on some of the things that we saw in the trailer. And if that's the case, then they could have picked modern. They could have, I mean, it just didn't make any sense. And I don't know. I have serious qualms or doubts about whether or not the Fantastic Four is ever going to work in a cinematic thing. I think the only time I've ever seen them on screen where it seemed to work was Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and that's when they were very, very secondary. I feel like everything else that I've seen them in, it has not worked. And so even the old animated series, I was not a fan of the old Fantastic Four animated series. There's a reason that it's not as highly regarded as Spider-Man or X-Men or Batman the animated series. I feel like the only thing that I've ever seen them in is Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and that's when they were kind of not as important.
I feel like it's a group that, because of the family dynamic of the characters and the way their stories play out, they do lend themselves much more to a show or a series than a movie. I think, because you could play on those family dynamics a lot better in a show, but the budget wouldn't justify making a show, especially with the viewership that Disney Plus gets. This money you'd have to spend to do the thing well would be.
They're also a very interactive group. They're not an exclusive group with their own stories very often. They interact with the Avengers, they interact with the X-Men, they interact with Spider-Man. I mean, they're in New York just like everybody else. And so it just kind of kills me that the way they're introducing this movie is it's pretty much them and that's it,
Yeah,
and so
because there's two types of Fantastic Four stories. They are always exploring other dimensions across space and time and realities, and they're just so far away from Earth or even our universe that they're in the microverse, or that they're fighting a nihilist in whatever dimension that he's in, and all that kind of stuff. And that's when it's just the four of them. Usually when they're on Earth fighting something, it is a galaxy destroying level threat.
Yeah.
And everybody else jumps in because everybody else would, because it's a galaxy destroying level threat that warrants the attention of the Fantastic Four. The only earthbound fights that they usually have that don't involve other people is when they square off against Doctor Doom, which frequently escalates to in a full-on Fantastic Four and the Avengers and everybody else type battle.
Sure.
So I don't know. And they do interact so well. Like, who wouldn't want to watch The Thing versus the Hulk in live action battling in New York?
I mean, and we've seen it in the books so many times, you know what I mean? And it's a great matchup for several reasons. And we've seen it so many times in the books, and you just want to see it again and you want to see it done well. But the things that I just don't know that that's anything that they're interested in. They're more interested in pushing the property so that they can have it at the theme park, or so that they can just have the merchandise on shelves for Christmas. That's more what they're interested in than actually making a good cinematic world that makes sense.
The Hulk has looked progressively less convincing ever since the first Avengers movie.
And the way they've done the character has just been odd choices all the way around. So they were having him be, of course, the mindless Hulk monster for years, and then all of a sudden he was a little better thinking, and by the time we got to Ragnarok, and then he ended up being on full-on smart Hulk in Endgame. And I think all of those were very, very odd directions. I know that they're directions that are taken in the books, but I feel like it's not the groundwork that you originally laid in this universe, and it doesn't make sense. And so I'm very much interested to see what they'll do with this, and maybe it'll surprise me. I hope it does, but I have very little hope. So
I will have more hope if at some point between now and the release date they announce that this is the beginning of a whole new continuity. This is not going to tie in.
And I just don't think they're going to do that, because I think that they want people to buy tickets to stuff that leads up to it. So I don't think they're going to do that.
If I know that this is going to tie in, right, then I know the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just hard to really invest yourself into watching a film for the very first time when the end. It would be like standing there in line to go see The Sixth Sense, and spoiler alert, everybody, for this over 20-year-old movie, and somebody walks out, it's like, Bruce Willis is a ghost the whole time. It would not be a fun movie. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to want to go see it then. And we're walking into the Fantastic Four going, okay, this is in a totally different timeline. And by the end of this movie, they're going to be transported to the timeline that we're familiar with.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't need 2 hours to end. Like, if I know where it ends, then, I mean, I know in every action movie, we know how it ends. The good guy wins. Mm-hmm. But exactly how he wins is not a foregone conclusion. I mean, so.
And I think that's why I think this movie could be a little different. I'm very intrigued by the fact that they're introducing Galactus and Silver Surfer and a lot of other interesting wrinkles into this whole thing. So we'll see what happens, but I don't know. I'm very much saying that I believe both of these movies, Captain America 4 and Fantastic Four, are not going to be what Disney needs as the shot in the arm that they were expecting out of either one of them. And I think that we're going to look back on this year and say that they totally whiffed on the opportunities because they were kind of focused on pushing the wrong agenda.
I still think, I know John thinks Cap 4 has the best chance.
No.
I think it has the worst chance, actually.
I think Thunderbolts is going to surprise some people, but it's not going to be well promoted. And I think that Fantastic Four will be, it'll be all right, but it won't be wow. And we need wow, honestly. So
I think it has the best chance of being a good movie. I do, because I would have said Thunderbolts a while ago, but the more
I'll see.
The more I figure about the ties to Black Widow, the more I'm like, this is going to be very meh, because Black Widow was very meh. So it's going to be real, to say what my kids say. They'll yell at me if they ever watch this, but they won't watch it. It's very mid. It's very mid, so
very mid.
And I feel like Thunderbolts might end up being pretty mid also. So I feel like the only shot for good Marvel is Fantastic Four, and I don't know if we're gonna get it. The mid-century modern set design looks really cool. I will say that it was cool. I liked it. Pedro Pascal's English or American accent just weirds me out.
I feel like I don't know. I just feel like that's what's going to make or break the movie. I will know within 5 minutes of Reed Richards whether or not we have something worth finishing. And that's going to be the problem, is I don't think I'm going to want to finish the movie. So we'll see.
Do you think they didn't put any stretching in because they haven't figured out how they're going to do the stretching effects?
No, I think they didn't put anything about Reed at all in the trailer on purpose, because I think that they know it's off the beaten path. We already knew that. We knew that he was off the beaten path of the typical Reed Richards, and I feel like they know that whatever we have is going to be criticized, and they want to show us as little as possible until the actual movie. That's what I think is actually coming. I think they're going to show us as little Reed as possible. They might show us a stretchy scene or two in the upcoming trailers, but I do not see them showing us the actual personality of Reed Richards until we get into the movie. And that's going to be the problem. 5 minutes in, people are going to determine whether or not they're going to give Pedro a shot as Reed Richards. And if they don't, this is going to be an enormous bomb, because the movie will not work without him as Reed. It won't.
Yeah.
If you don't have Reed, you don't have the Fantastic Four.
No, he's the impetus for everything. And
that's it.
He's the one, the reason they're always in these far-flung adventures and other dimensions and galaxies is because of all the experiments he's always doing. He always gets them in, like, not messes, they're explorers. This is what they do, so I don't feel like they have confidence in the power set. I don't know that they like the stretchy power as a power.
I think that, like me, they don't necessarily think that these characters will work well cinematically. I think that they think that this is going to be more of a story than it is a story about the powers and the characters. Try to build off the personalities of the characters and get the performances from the actors, but I just don't know how well that's going to land. And ultimately, I think that this movie, the timing of releasing this movie just could not be worse. Sandwiched between two really bad movies, okay, that we've got right here, and then next year, which just does not look promising at all either. I think that this is going to be something that they're going to look back on and say, we probably should have either waited until the brand new continuity, or we should have done this like 5 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway,
it's easy to introduce them when you have those other characters around.
But they're all gone.
Yeah. If Reed could play off Tony Stark, then
Banner. Banner.
It really just lets the whole thing go. What is next year is Secret War and then Doomsday? Is that in the same year or something?
I think so. And honestly, I'm not looking forward to much in this universe. So
yeah,
it is what it is, man. But
yeah.
do you have any other thoughts on anything else? Or
I think we've got it. I think that's what we've got for this week, everybody. Again, share, subscribe. You can find John Automates at John Automates, and we'll be back next Thursday.